Most people think spiders are the nightmare fuel of the insect world. The 8 legs, the silent movement, the webs designed to trap things alive. It makes sense that they top most people's lists of things they'd rather never encounter. But here's the thing about spiders. They kill fast, they bite, they inject venom, and it's over in seconds. Clean, if brutal. What I'm about to describe to you doesn't work like that at all. There exists a creature that doesn't kill its prey. It does something far worse. It keeps it alive. It turns a living body into a nursery, a food source, and a tomb, all at the same time. And it does this so efficiently, so precisely, that the victim often has no idea what's happening until it's far too late to matter. The Ichneumon wasp has been doing this for over 100 million years, and the fact that most people have never heard of it says a lot about how uncomfortable the truth of nature can actually get. To understand why this is so different from anything a spider does, you first have to understand how normal predation works. A predator finds prey, kills it, and eats it. The prey suffers briefly, dies, and the interaction ends. It's a transaction, horrible for the prey, functional for the predator, over quickly. Every major predator you've ever been afraid of operates on this principle. Sharks, wolves, lions, they are all fundamentally in the business of converting living things into dead things as efficiently as possible. The killing is the point. Parasitic wasps threw that entire rulebook into the ocean. The Ichneumon wasp doesn't want its host dead. Death is the one outcome it cannot afford. What it wants is something that requires a level of biological precision that honestly shouldn't exist in a creature without a medical degree. It wants a living incubator, a warm, breathing, metabolizing body that will keep its eggs safe, keep its larvae fed, and stay alive long enough for the next generation to develop fully before it finally, and only finally, gets consumed from the inside out. There are over 100,000 known species of Ichneumon wasps. 100,000. That makes them one of the largest groups of animals on the planet, and the vast majority of people couldn't pick one out of a lineup. They look at first glance almost elegant. Slender bodies, delicate wings, that long trailing appendage at the back that looks like a stinger, but is actually something with a more disturbing purpose. That structure is called an ovipositor, and it is one of the most specialized biological tools in the natural world. It's not for defense. It's not for attacking prey. It is, purely and precisely, a needle designed to inject eggs into a living body. Watch what happens when a female Ichneumon wasp finds a caterpillar. She doesn't chase it. She doesn't grab it with powerful jaws or wrestle it into submission. She lands near it with a calm that reads almost like confidence, and she begins to probe. The ovipositor makes contact with the caterpillar's body, and what follows is a process so deliberate it looks less like predation and more like surgery. She is locating the exact right spot, not too close to vital organs, not somewhere that would cause immediate fatal damage, but a position where her eggs will be protected and surrounded by tissue rich enough to feed what hatches from them. When she finds it, she inserts the ovipositor and deposits her eggs directly into the living body of the caterpillar. The caterpillar keeps moving. It keeps eating. It has no idea. And this is where the spider comparison collapses entirely, because what a spider does to you ends at the moment of the bite. What the Ichneumon wasp has just done is only the beginning of something that unfolds over days. The eggs are inside a living animal. The animal's immune system, if it's strong enough, will attempt to fight back, encapsulating the foreign objects, trying to wall them off before they can develop. This is why the wasp's eggs, and eventually the larvae themselves, have evolved countermeasures. Some species inject a cocktail of chemicals alongside the eggs that actively suppress the host's immune response. Others carry symbiotic viruses, called polynaviruses, that are passed from mother to egg and exist for one single purpose: to disable the caterpillar's defenses from the inside. The wasp doesn't just implant eggs. It delivers a biological toolkit specifically engineered to keep the host from fighting back. When the eggs hatch, the larvae don't eat randomly. This is the detail that, once you understand it, you cannot unhear. The larvae have a specific, instinctive understanding of which tissues to consume first and which to leave alone. They start with fat reserves, then hemolymph, the insect equivalent of blood, rich in nutrients and easy to access. They avoid the organs the caterpillar needs to survive. They avoid the heart. They avoid anything that would kill the host before the larvae are ready to leave. They are feeding on a living creature with the precision of surgeons, keeping it metabolically functional because a dead host is a food source that's already going bad. And the caterpillar, it keeps living. It keeps eating. From the outside, it might look slightly sluggish, slightly off, but it's moving through the world with an entire colony of larvae developing inside its body, consuming it from within, and it cannot do anything about it. The wasp larvae have already disabled the immune system. There is no internal alarm that works anymore. The caterpillar is, for all practical purposes, a vehicle that doesn't know it's been stolen. Some species take this even further. Parasitic wasps, a genus within the broader Ichneumon family, do something that was only documented in the early 2000s, something that researchers initially struggled to believe was actually happening. After the larvae are ready to pupate, they chew their way out through the caterpillar's skin. But some of them stay behind. A small group of larvae remains inside the still-living caterpillar and begins to manipulate its behavior from within. The caterpillar, which would normally move freely and feed, instead becomes a bodyguard. It stops eating. It stations itself near the cocoons of the larvae that have already emerged and thrashes violently whenever any predator approaches, actively defending the offspring of the very organisms that are killing it. It's not protecting its own young. It has no young. It has been reprogrammed by larvae still living inside it to protect the next generation of wasps until it finally dies. No spider does this. No wolf, no shark, no predator you've ever been afraid of does anything remotely like this. What the Ichneumon wasp has evolved is not predation. It's something that doesn't have a clean human category because in the human world, nothing like it exists. The closest analogy is horror fiction, and the horror fiction borrowed the idea from nature, not the other way around. The biologist, Charles Darwin, a man not known for being squeamish about the brutality of the natural world, was reportedly deeply disturbed by Ichneumon wasps specifically. In an 1860 letter, he wrote that he could not convince himself that a beneficent God would have intentionally created a wasp with the purpose of feeding inside the living bodies of caterpillars. For Darwin, who had already spent years cataloging the cruelty of natural selection without losing his composure, the Ichneumon wasp was the specific example that made the whole system seem genuinely impossible to justify. That's not a small thing. That's the man who described natural selection without flinching, finding one corner of nature too dark to rationalize. And the wasps don't limit themselves to caterpillars. Different species have evolved to parasitize spiders, beetles, flies, moths, aphids, and, perhaps most unsettling, other parasitic wasps. There are wasps that parasitize other insects. Layers of parasitism stacked on top of each other, each species having evolved its own set of countermeasures, chemical suppressants, and behavioral manipulations to outcompete the layer below it. The term for this is hyperparasitism, and it exists in nature as a fully functional ecological strategy that has been refined over millions of years. The ecological role of Ichneumon wasps is, somewhat ironically, enormous and largely beneficial from a human perspective. They are one of the primary natural regulators of caterpillar populations, which means they are quietly preventing agricultural devastation on a massive scale every single growing season. Farmers who have never seen an Ichneumon wasp in their lives are benefiting from them constantly. The wasps that Darwin found morally intolerable are, in practical terms, part of the reason that food exists. Nature has a way of making its most disturbing mechanisms also its most necessary ones. But none of that changes what they actually do, or how they do it. There's a tendency, when confronting something like this, to reach for distance, to say it's just nature, just biology, just insects following instinct with no awareness of what's happening. And that's true. The wasp isn't cruel. The caterpillar isn't suffering in any way we can meaningfully compare to human suffering. The larvae aren't malicious. It's a system. And it works, and it has worked for longer than our species has existed by an almost incomprehensible margin. But the reason parasitic wasps are more terrifying than spiders isn't about cruelty or intention. It's about what the mechanism itself reveals. Spiders remind us that the world has things in it that want to kill us. The Ichneumon wasp reveals something more unsettling than that the world has things in it for which our death isn't even the point. That a living body, any living body, can be assessed not for what it is but for what it can be made to do. That consciousness, movement, and continued existence offer no protection whatsoever if the right organism has already found the right way in. The spider wants you dead. The Ichneumon wasp wants something worse. It wants you useful.